Hey YouTube, Petey Twofinger here. I was checking out Radical Research Podcast. This is a really cool music podcast. And episode 43, cut it, Dissecting Mr. Bungle's California. So I'm going to recommend that you check the link in the description, pencil in an hour for yourself to give a listen to what the boys over at the research, cut it, what is it? Radical Research. It's got a really cool, it's just a dynamite looking thing, and it's two lads. One of them appears to be talking through a plumbing system of tubes and pipes. Perhaps it's a cell phone. I don't know why they couldn't both be in the room to discuss something as important as Mr. Bungle's third and final Warner Brothers major label release. If you're not a Mr. Bungle fan, shame on you. They are the best band in the world. Period. No argument. You may think it's Led Zeppelin. You're wrong. Anyway, oh, I'm getting a dirty look from my wife.
No, I'm not getting a dirty look.
Oh, what? I forgot. She's a...
But I do like Led Zeppelin over Mr. Bungle. Probably.
What?
I don't know.
Get out of here. They never played Mr. Bungle on the radio. It automatically makes them better. Anyway, my kid's a King Diamond fan. You should ask her what she thinks. Yeah, Mr. Bungle is one of those bands. I tend to kind of go on and on about them. People know about the debut album because of Mikey Patton, who was the charming poster boy from Faith No More singer after they got rid of the flamboyantly alcoholic Chuck Mosley, who really did a wonderful job. Chuck was such an integral part of that Faith No More sound. And then to hear Mike Patton come in and infest this Faith No More band with the sickness that is Mr. Bungle, because that's really what happened. I think that, like they said on this podcast, that Faith No More, they stepped back after the first album wondering, what are we going to do? How are we going to top this? Because it was kind of an extension of where they had been going. It was like they had reached a peak. And instead of stepping back and trying to mimic that or double take that, replicate it, I believe they were listening to the Mr. Bungle debut and just floored by it. And that they were like, we're going to get some of this. We're going to take some of that dissonance and it's weird because it's got this Angel Dust album, the Faith No More album, has got this angular kind of sound to it that you don't really hear anybody else doing. It's so far ahead of its time. So yeah, that's going to be the other one. Check out the Cut It, Dissecting Mr. Bungle's California. If you're not a Mr. Bungle fan, if you are, check out the podcast. It's wonderful. They love the album. No surprise there. It's the greatest album. In my opinion, it's the best album that was ever recorded. Simply put. And if you read into how they recorded it, you begin to understand why it was so great. It was the last massively analog album ever recorded, where they literally synced 3 48-track tape machines together to be able to handle this mother. And it's just kind of something that you have to it comes at you and it's like a cartoon, and then it kind of really grabs you, and then you kind of really digest it, and at that point you start trying to figure out what they're singing about. What is this, Latin? There's a lot of Latin on it. And you're just kind of left with the feeling that this is a masterpiece. Like, nothing even comes close. It's just perfection. So if this sounds like something you'd be interested in checking out, I'd recommend you listen to the podcast. Get yourself a copy. You can listen. It's on. I believe it's on YouTube. You can listen to California. This album was postponed because the label also had Red Hot Chili Peppers crack cocaine, and that album was going to be called Californication, yeah. And Mr. Bungle's album was called California, and Anthony Kiedis always had this hatred for Mike Patton, saying that I see Mike Patton and I'm looking in a mirror. Now, yes, they did ape some of that RHCP feel. Even with the clothes Patton was wearing in some of those videos, it was very clear that the director had kind of set them up for that. And if you look at how Mike Patton dressed, he never dressed like that. And all of the other stuff you see him, he's dressing more clown-like. It's more like it's Bungle. He's often wearing Bungle shirts. On the epic video, he's got a tractor in my balls t-shirt, which is a very sought after and famous shitty Mr. Bungle shirt. The thing that I would have liked to have gotten out of all the Mr. Bungle stuff is the Mr. Bungle bubble bath. Anyway, I'm going to cut you guys loose. Definitely check out this album, Mr. Bungle California. There's 2 more albums. Like I said, most people are familiar with the debut album. There's another one called Disco Volante, and that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be something that you get it, and if you stick with it, you know, you may be able to begin to crack the code, crack the icing on that album a few months into giving it casual listens. But for me, it took years. It took years, and when it hit me like a truck, and instantly became like my favorite thing. The last song on that album is the coolest piece of noise music ever recorded, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm a Melt Banana fan, so do I really want to say that? Anyway, there's a whole world of interesting music for you to discover with Mr. Bungle, and it does lead to other really fascinating bands, such as Melt Banana. And if you're not a fan of that stuff, what are you sitting around looking at me for? All right, you guys, I'll see you around, and peace.